Hey guys, so this is my Inca 259 joinery table saw. This is a made in Switzerland machine. It's a super high precision joinery saw. So I thought I would do a video on it because there's not a lot of information out there on these 259s, and I thought I would just kind of go over some of the unique features that really differentiate this thing from a lot of the other machines on the market. It's got a lot of built-in safety features that you're not going to see, as well as a lot of other functional things that you're not going to see, like a horizontal mortiser built into this, 1080 high precision 1080 jig, and some other things. So I thought I would do the video so you can see what it's all about. This one, there are no other machines on the market that really match this in terms of the fit, finish, quality, function, size, and accuracy. There's just nothing else out there. Right now you have a choice between a full-size cabinet saw or a hybrid saw that offers you basically high precision, high build quality, but the compromise there is that it's a large size. You need to use 4-inch dust collection, and they're pretty expensive. So you have one end of the spectrum, large saws, high precision. The other end of the spectrum is small saws that are portable and cheap, but they offer no real build quality and no real accuracy like a contractor saw. So there's nothing really in between. This is the only machine that is an in between. It has a 1.5 horsepower American ball door motor, so same size motor that you would find on any other cabinet or hybrid saw, and it has the fit and finish of the nicest saws on the market, period. Just this thing is high precision, quality build. It's like the engineering that went into this is incredible. But it's also light, and it's portable, and it's modular. You can remove these tables, you can reduce the size of the footprint down to the size of the stand, which is just super small. You can remove the mortiser, you can build a standalone unit for the mortiser using a router. The options are pretty limitless on this. It's just such a good machine. So let's just jump in. I'm gonna start showing. First off, I want to show you how smooth this is, because part of the reason why this thing is so light is that this is an aluminum top. This is cast aluminum top, injection molded with hard anodized surface. It's very flat. It's high wear resistance. You can see you don't have to deal with rust like a normal saw. And it's easy to move around because of this. Now, most saws, they rely on their mass to dampen vibration in the machine. These machines rely on engineering to get away with just being buttery smooth. So you can see I bounced nickel on the edge of the table here. Let's see if I can turn the motor on without, the floor isn't level, so let's see if I can turn it on without rocking the stand. So you can see here. And you can see it's got a pretty abrupt brake on that motor, so the blade comes to stop pretty quickly. And you can see on startup, while running and turning it off, even with the brake, this thing does not move. And you can see there, it's not glued to the table or anything. So these are so smooth. You turn it on, you touch the table, you don't feel a thing. So let's look at some of the safety features here. This thing has a writhing knife, which is so critical in preventing kickback. If you're looking at a used saw, do not consider anything without a writhing knife. I personally am a fan of vintage machines. A lot of the machines that I have are vintage Delta from the 40s. I own currently a few, and I've had quite a few others. That one saw that I don't touch is the Delta Unisaw, even though it's a great saw, and that's because there's no provision for a writhing knife. It is not worth the risk of kickback on these machines that comes without having a writhing knife. So you gotta have one. The other feature here is this thing comes with a removable sub fence. Now, the thing when you're working with actual solid wood and not plywood is that you get wood movement, and that there are stresses built in the wood. So when you cut them, you're either gonna have you'll have wood sometimes that will spread, you'll have it where it wants to clamp together, and so the combination of the writhing knife and the sub fence prevent kickback from any of these two scenarios. So the sub fence, you set it so the sub fence only extends maybe an inch past the front of the blade. It extends an inch past, and so if the wood happens to want to spread as it gets cut and those stresses are relieved and it spreads, it's not going to push against the fence and then push your piece over and have it flip up and ride up on the back of that blade. So it allows for that blade to the wood to widen. Now, let's say you go and the wood wants to close. Well, that's what the writhing knife is for. Is so as it closes, it's not going to pinch on the back of the blade and then flip up at you or shoot out towards you. So between the two, you have phenomenal safety features there. You don't always have to run the sub fence. It's removable, but it's a good safety feature to have. I don't really see anybody using these things anymore. The other thing is it's got an overarm guard that just swings up and out of the way. And so if you don't want to use it, you can lift it up. You can remove it a couple turns of this knob and it slides right off. So if you want to switch over to using a tenoning jig, this thing just slides right off. It's super convenient. The thing with the guards that attach on the writhing knives is, in order to use those guards, you have to have the writhing knife set at a higher position. So now if you want to make a cut where you're not cutting all the way through the piece, you have to lower the writhing knife back down, remove the guard. It's a nightmare. And because of that, most guys don't use them. I'm guilty of this myself. But the fact that this has an overarm guard, there's no reason not to use it, because as long as you have the space and you're cutting something, that you can push through here that's maybe wider than 3/4 of an inch, there's no reason not to use it, and it's so easy. You just lower it down to the height of the wood, and there's no risk of you touching the blade. You can push stuff through. I personally use the micro jig product, the gripper, but you don't have to worry about this. You're not going to come in contact. The other thing about this too is that these overarm guards offer you the ability to add overarm dust collection. The easiest thing to do would be to basically just cut this. You could drill a hole in the side. You could drill it over on this side in the front, and add a port. And you just have the hose come up and then around. This is a stiff, rigid support, so you can have overarm dust collection on this machine with very minimal modification. The other option is to actually build your own guard, which I thought about doing, and I just didn't feel like it was necessary, because when the guard's down, all that dust is basically getting pulled back down underneath. It's not flying up at you. So because this is a full enclosure guard, it's not coming up in your face. So if you want to add it, you can. It's easy. The other thing is the fence here. So I mentioned this is a high precision system. So one is I added the Wixie digital readout. The reason why I added this is because these rails can slide depending on what setup you want. If you're cutting a wider piece, you can slide these rails all the way over, and if you don't need them out on this side, you can center them. You can even take these sections out. You can do whatever you want, depending on what your space constraints are. But this thing has a resolution of, you can see there, it's very precise. I think it goes to thousandths of an inch. So let me tighten this and so you could see. Resolution of 5 thousandths of an inch, which is just crazy. Now that alone is great, but part of this works in tandem with this. This is a micro adjuster, so you can see this is the same. This design was copied by Craig on their bandsaw. So this is, you can see how this works. You just clamp this down, you loosen this up slightly, and these are, I believe, are around 4 thousandths of an inch, these graduations. So you can really dial in. You have the repeatability, but you can also switch between imperial and metric with the push of a button, and you can also go absolute or incremental. So if you want to do an incremental move, so forget about what it is. Let's say you just want to go over 1/4 of an inch. You can just set absolute and just move over, or say 1 inch, and you can get it exactly at 1 inch, and then you can, then go back to absolute, and then you can switch over to incremental, and you can go and do that. So if you're doing like rows of dados, it's super easy to do because you could just use that incremental measurement. And then you also have this precision here of this. So super super precision here for the fence adjustment. Now you go down to the height adjustment. You look at the height adjustment here. This has an actual readout of showing you exactly where you are, what the height of the blade is. And so you don't have to bust out the ruler every time and do the measurement yourself. You can just look down here and figure out exactly how much the blade's protruding. Then onto the angle now. This has veneer setup, so you can actually set this to fractions of a degree with just insane accuracy. There's no way you can get this degree of accuracy without using a supplemental like Wixie angle gauge or something like this. But this has the repeatability and the precision to dial in angles like no other machine. So there's that. Very small, compact package. This is removable. This arm swings back out of the way if you're cutting wider pieces. So the capacity, the rip capacity in this, I think it's like 28 inches or something like this. So it's good enough for most work. If you're going larger, then you should be using something like a track saw if you have it. Now, this thing converts over really simply to a mortising machine. Let me show you how that works. There's a few ways to do it. You can remove the panels, or you can just loosen the angle adjustment here and tilt the table up. So let me put this here. So you can take a look. Okay, so the table tilts up. Lock that back down. And now you have high visibility here for your mortising machine. This is a horizontal mortiser, and the reason why this is a tilting table is because they need to have a fixed arbor in order to be able to give you a mortising machine on this. So this is the stop system. So you have this where you loosen this and you can create stops. If you're doing a bunch of pieces with the same cuts, this part you can actually have it so it goes in. So if you're doing a run of mortises, this actually can go inside the mortise, and the mortise becomes the stop for the neighboring cut rather than the end of the board. So if you're doing a long piece, now you can move in 3 axes here: in, out, side to side, and then up and down with this adjustment knob. So you remove these locking, and then this is highly precise. So you can find the center of a board by putting in a bit that's ground to a point, which I have, or taking a brad point bit, putting a brad point bit in there, and then using the bit to find the exact center on a piece, and then you swap out to whatever size mortise you want to cut. And here, let me, I'll power this up so you can see it. And this thing cuts mortises so accurately and quickly, it's insane. This is such a good setup. These holes here are for clamps that drop in and clamp your workpiece down. And so you have 2, 1 on each side. And for repeatability, they have stops for side to side and your depth stop, so that you can cut your mortises repeatable to stop. So these are these 2 stops. You can adjust them depending on the width of your mortise, and then your depth of your mortise is adjusted through this stop here. So this is absolutely phenomenal. Once you use one of these mortisers, it's almost like cheating. It's like the same degree of cheating as like a Festool domino. I mean, it's that good and that fast. But the thing is you're not limited to the cutter sizes and the limitations of something like the domino. This, you can go super wide mortises. You're not limited in your cutter size. It's really good. And once you do your mortises, then you head over and you do your tenons, right? Well, this is what makes this thing such a phenomenal joinery machine. This has a tenoning jig that's so accurate. You can see the fit just in the miter slots here. There's like no play. The fit is just so good, and the thing just runs so smooth. You clamp the piece. You have stops here for your mortise or for your tendons, and you can just cut a sample mortise and you use that. You cut the sample mortise in half, and then you use that to set up your stops. And this thing will make the best fitting mortise and tendon joints with total ease. It's like, I mean, it's crazy. So if you want to set this thing up as a dedicated joinery machine, you can remove the fence. If you're not going to use it, you can just set it up so you have this super small template or super small footprint, and you can put, say, a 1/4 inch dado stack in there, and you can use that to make your tendon super fast. And I mean, it's so easy. And that cuts out the step of having to cut the shoulders off if you use like a dado. If you use a dado stack. And if you don't want to go that route and you just want to use a standard blade, then you would, depending on the size of your tendon, then you would cut the cheeks on the tendon, and then you would cut the shoulders with the miter gauge. You just, super simple. You got your stops here, or you can use your fence as a stop. I mean, it's such a great machine. In terms of dust collection, so like I mentioned, you had the overarm dust collection. You have underarm. The system is, because this table moves, you have this varying gap here. So the way that this is set up is the dust is just designed to fall out and go out the chute out the back, and you get a little pile sitting in the back. If you want to be more proactive about the dust collection, some people simply just run a hose up and push the hose up in here and just wedge it, and then you just have a hose sitting here, and it does a really good job. That's what I did. I didn't find it necessary to go a step beyond that. Now the step beyond that would be to base the best way. Really the best way would be just be get these angles here, and you just make a small 1/2 inch block, and you can screw it in. You can hot glue it in. I mean, you could do whatever to fix it in place here, and then you'd make an opening and connect a port to the bottom of that. And so that seals the system, and you can see this is pretty much fully enclosed, so your dust collection would be incredible, because you don't have a huge cabinet like on a cabinet saw where that dust is just lofting around, where you need a 4-inch port to move a volume of air, because you're able to place the port so close to the blade, and all the sawdust is coming right down through here. And so it's going to want to you're going to want to pull it out of this airstream. And if you have rather than using a 4-inch dust collector, which you can use a shop vac. And the reason that's great is because that pulls air at high velocity. So it's not high volume, it's high velocity, a lot of pressure. And so that'll pull that dust out of the airstream, and you're able to capture it really, really effectively. So the dust collection possibilities on this machine are unrivaled, and you don't rely on having a 4-inch system. So it's really good. But yeah, so there it is. I'm sure I left some other things out. I mean, you know, just small stuff like the extensions here, which I added. These are made to be super light, because you don't want that, you don't really want the weight on the machine, because you're having to raise the table. So these are just inserts are made light. You can move them side to side. You can move both on one side. You can get rid of them entirely. And there's just other things like this platform I rebuilt, which I would suggest you do if you have one of these. These will tend to twist with time, because they're made of more like a press board like this, like a particle. And so they'll have a tendency to twist, and then you get your pulleys out of alignment. So this is doubled up plywood, laminated, edge banded in oak. And then that is rock solid. That's not going to twist. So there's just other things. If you have one of these and you haven't torn it down, I really would recommend tearing these things down, because you have these two surfaces here gliding up and down against each other. The original grease that they use, I'm assuming white lithium grease, it just hardens up like a plastic and makes these things really difficult to move up and down. You want it to just, this one's been totally I totally disassembled this, and you can see how easy this thing moves. And the precision that you get with this height adjustment is excellent. Now, the compromise here is This is high precision but low speed. If you want to make this thing faster, you can knock the pin out here, remove this. There's a flat spot on the back. You can drill it, and you can actually attach a little handle, so you can do like a handle on this for quick up and down. I've never done it because I've never felt the need. You know, it just takes a few turns and you dial in your height and you're set. So anyway, there it is. This is the Inca 259. This is one of the best saws in my opinion. Okay, I'll say this. You heard me rant and rave and how much I love it. If you only have a table saw and you do not have a track saw or any other means to break down sheet goods, this is not the machine for you. So this, at the time that this machine was released, it was like on par in terms of price with something like a Delta Unisaw. Well, people were using their table saws to break down sheet goods. So when you look at this saw, you're like, well, I can't break down sheet goods on this. This is too small. This is not a machine you're going to want to break down sheet goods. Now the times are different. Now we have technology that they didn't have back then. These high precision track saws basically changed the game when it came to this, because with the track saws break down sheet goods. They're good for larger pieces, but the thing that they do not do is joinery, and they do not do repetitive small rips, which is, you know, where the table saw comes in. So this is the perfect complement to a track saw. So if you have something like a Festool, Makita, DeWalt, Grizzly, any track saw that you can break down sheet goods with and do that safely, then you have something like this that you can do actual joinery with and do your repetitive cuts with. You don't need a full-size cabinet saw. It's overkill. And you see a lot of guys on the Festool forum say, oh, well, I have my track saw, I'm going to get rid of my table saw. And some guys can successfully do it, but not if you're trying to do joinery. There are other means, but nothing as quick or as accurate as a table saw setup like this. So take that into consideration. If you're thinking about one of these saws, this is not for somebody who's trying to break down sheet goods using this. You need to have a track saw to use as a companion to this type of unit. If you have that, or you have other means to break down sheet goods, or maybe you don't even use sheet goods, then this is the best of the best. So anyway, I just thought I'd throw it out there as well. There are some shortcomings. You're not going to want to do bevel cuts on a 4x4 sheet of ply on this machine. Don't do it. Not safe. It's not worth it. So there you go. Inca 259, made in Switzerland. One of the nicest high precision small